I am Brigadier Kalia. Today I have compiled a few clippings of mass child abuse in the United Kingdom. But of course I would not like to label it Children of UK, as typecasting the country on the basis of an unfortunate occurrence shows insincerity in pursuit of social justice.
I was a child and they should have stepped in. It is damaging. There's some things that I don't remember, but you know, there's also things that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And no matter what's done now, and you think if it's investigated now, it's not going to change that. It was too late. It should have been stopped and prevented.
In Rotherham, in the north of England, 1,400 children, we think, some as young as 11 years old, were sexually abused, raped, beaten, threatened with death over a number of years by gangs and groups of Muslim men.
Their calls for help went unheeded by the council or by the police. I'm afraid this betrays an issue of attitude that was being taken towards these girls.
Police in particular were reluctant to take the reports from children and adults seriously for fear of rocking the boat with local community relations, because the perpetrators happened, in this case and other cases, to be from a Pakistani community.
Now, what we've got to be very clear to anyone who's thinking about abusing children, whether you're white, you're black or you're Asian, you will be pursued.
Even within those statements, and I applaud them, there was denial. These children and their families, they did report the horrors to the police and the authorities, but nothing was done. Politicians, social workers, police officers did nothing because they were frightened of being accused of racism or Islamophobia. This is not the first time such incidents have occurred, but it may be the worst.
Abuse in Rotherham may be viewed as a watershed moment in our understanding of the sexual exploitation of children. But as criminal investigations continue and the town tries to heal, Channel 4 News can reveal exclusive figures that show a high number of children currently at risk across England. Data obtained by this programme shows that more than 6,000 children have been referred to councils as being at risk, and that's in the past 18 months alone. Cordelia Lynch has spoken to the brother of a man accused of grooming girls and has gone beyond Rotherham to the streets of Bradford and elsewhere to find out how many are in danger tonight.
The news that 1,400 girls were abused in Rotherham sent shockwaves across the country. Disbelief was followed by condemnation.
You let my sister be raped, you let us be groomed, and you left us and put us in taxis with the groomers.
Mr. Wright, do you really think you should stay in this job? Do you really think you're the right man to continue in this role? What do you say to the victims?
Eventually, there were some high-level departures. The girls in Rotherham were raped, beaten and trafficked to other cities over a 16-year period. But this programme has seen figures which show thousands of children are at risk right now in England.
Rotherham is not the exception. Rotherham is potentially more likely to be the norm.
Figures obtained by Channel 4 News reveal more than 3,000 children were referred to councils for being at risk of sexual exploitation in just the first 6 months of this year. And 6 of the top 10 councils are in the north, including here in Bradford. But the data shows high numbers of vulnerable children across the country.
Figures seen by this programme from 88 councils show that over 18 months, more than 6,300 children under 16 were flagged up to social services for being vulnerable to child sexual exploitation. In Hampshire, the local authority referred 196 children in the first 6 months of this year. In Manchester, there were 173. Northamptonshire wasn't far behind with 166. Derbyshire 109 and Sheffield 151 children at risk. We spent the night on the streets of Bradford and it soon felt hostile. Within moments we witnessed a sex worker being abused. Alongside older women were young girls in the early hours of the morning coming in and out of buildings with different men. We've been driving round for about an hour and it's really quite a tense atmosphere. We've already seen a group of young guys throw a drinks bottle at a sex worker, lots of them circling the area. Occasionally you see a very young girl, and we've just come across a police officer who's looking for a missing girl who's just 14. It certainly doesn't feel like a comfortable place to be, especially not as a woman. Experts working with affected families say there are familiar patterns across the UK.
I'm not surprised, because one of the clear signs of a child at risk of sexual exploitation is that they're missing at night. And I find it unsurprising to think that the perpetrator can walk down the street with a girl who clearly looks underage late at night and will think that they will not get challenged or not asked why are they in that situation. I would most definitely say, from the experience of working with families and parents and children across the country, that there is systemic child sexual exploitation in certain areas of the United Kingdom. Yes, I would say that. And it is incredibly difficult to end a culture that is becoming intergenerational. So you will have different parents, different children, but it is happening every 5-10 years. It will be repeating itself.
This woman, who we're calling Jenny, says her daughter Sarah was groomed online by a group of white boys and recruited by a female friend when they were just 12 years old. She believes the threat teenagers pose is being overlooked.
She was contacting these people who offered free drugs to children, starting from cannabis upwards, and then told them they'd have to pay for it. The girl got paid for everybody she introduced to them.
How much was she being paid?
Something in the region of £5 a child.
So she was effectively acting like a pimp?
Yeah. She was being controlled all the time, by phone, by internet, in person. They took total control, but they had me on the other end pulling, which made it more difficult.
Back in Rotherham, I've spoken to alleged victims waiting to see if their cases will make it to court. One seen here on the right claims she was just 14 when she was groomed.
I was a child with a grown man. It was almost like he put a spell over me.
So what of the men accused by girls? One of those named is Arshid Hussain. Known as Mad Ash, it's alleged a number of girls described him as their boyfriend. He didn't want to talk to us, but for the first time, a member of his family has spoken on camera.
Have you ever asked Ash if he had sex with underage girls?
I have. My father has. All my family has. He's not like that. All they've created for yourselves and the newspapers is Ash to be a monster. He is not a monster.
From your perspective,
okay,
what happened in Rotherham?
Well, it's like anything else, to be quite fair with you. People get accused day in, day out of allegations get made. Like I said to you before, I can't sit here and call you a prostitute for a simple reason, is that's just an allegation. I haven't actually seen you do anything, and I also haven't got any proof.
Do you think all 1,400 of those girls were lying?
No, I didn't say that. Biggest part of the problem you have these days is these young girls that are dressed up, i.e. mini skirts, stuff like that, and they're going into the clubs. And they're ending up going with blokes and stuff like that. They're waking up next morning and they scream, rape or groomed.
Some of these girls were just 12 and
that's
in children's homes.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be hard pushed to see any of them as 16.
Yeah, I agree with you on that case, but that is really, really, really sick if girls young as 12 are saying they're being groomed. And I can't say if they have been groomed or they haven't been groomed, but if anyone's to blame on that scenario is the social workers. If they're going to accuse somebody, for example, a 12-year-old girl's accused my brother Arshid, yeah? Prime example I've just give you. If someone's accused him of that, it's not Arshid to blame. It's the social services to let her out at a time like that.
And this is how he equates sex with underage girls.
It's like going and eating that dog crap. They wouldn't do it. If I said to you, right, go outside and pick that dog crap up and eat it, you're not gonna eat it, are you? Unless you're cracked up. You know, we forbid that stuff. We wouldn't allow it.
Back in Bradford, like Keighley, community groups are actively trying to tackle grooming. Victims have become mentors to support other children. But some councils only started collecting data on exploitation last year. And tonight, on streets across Britain, in dozens of towns and cities, there are thousands of vulnerable children.
I was just going to a shopping centre with my friends on the weekend. I was 12 years old at this time, and I was approached by a group of young boys. Started talking to them, struck up a friendship, and they slowly just started to introduce older and older people to me, and that's how it first started. They were from good families, like they were nice boys, they were well dressed, they were well spoken. They'd buy me a McDonald's, a Happy Meal, and then as they started to introduce older people, we'd go in the cars and we'd listen to music and we'd just park up and we'd have a chat and we'd laugh. They slowly started to introduce alcohol and soft drugs as part of my grooming.
And was there one particular ringleader that you became involved in?
Yeah, I became singled out in many ways by one of them. We'd become friends. I'd spend all my time with him. If something was wrong in my life, he would put it right. He was sort of a knight in shining armour. He was perfect. And he was the first one who actually started to sexually exploit me. We was just hanging around in the bus station and they started to touch me up, my main perpetrator and another member of the group. And initially I felt uncomfortable because obviously I'd never had a boyfriend or anything like that. I was still a child. Next thing I knew, it was actually on top of me raping me and I was being pinned down by other men. And that was that was my first encounter of sexual assault. From then, I went into sexual exploitation really without even knowing it, because in a way that was sort of like I'd been broken in. And I used to have to sleep with whoever wanted to sleep with me. And I had no one to run to or turn to, you know. My parents became aware of what was happening and they was banging on every door possible. No one would help them. It was seen as I was making a choice, and actually I'd had all my choices removed from me. You know, I was a child and adult men who were dangerous and who were criminals were controlling me.
So were your perpetrators ever brought to justice?
No. I had a really bad experience with the police. They treated me like I was a naughty child. I was the problem. And basically I just need to sort myself out, and if I sort myself out, all these problems will just go away. They treated me as though I was a liar. And I've got my video interviews, what I did back then. And I was a child. I was 13 years old on one and I was 14 years old on the other, and I was sat describing being sexually assaulted and sold on my video interviews, and they were interrogating me more than they would if I would have been a criminal and actually committed a crime and I was an abused child. And it's actually, it's disgusting to watch. I'd saved all my clothes that I'd been sexually assaulted in, and you could quite clearly see I'd been sexually assaulted in these clothes. I gave them as evidence and they actually lost them. So there was no evidence, it was my word against theirs. And I wasn't what the police call a reliable witness. You know, I wouldn't do very well in court because I could be aggressive and I wasn't always helpful. So basically there was no chance of a conviction.
Are you still hopeful that you will get justice, that your perpetrators will be sentenced and jailed?
Yeah, I am. And not just, I don't think so much for what they've done to me, but just for the simple reason I feel that these people shouldn't be out on the streets. They're a danger to the public, and whilever they're walking about, people aren't safe.
Paragraph 5.3 of the report says that in 2008, an 11-year-old girl came to the attention of the police after she disclosed that she and another child had been sexually abused by a group of adult males. Just a few weeks later, she was found in a derelict house with another child and a number of adult males. Yet she was arrested, 11 years of age, she was arrested for being drunk and disorderly, and none of the males were arrested. Has your force identified the police officers involved in that and found out what went on?
I don't know.
Okay.
Don't know.
All right. In paragraph 5.21...
Sorry, will you find out?
We will. Apologies,
and come
yes.
and tell us next week. We can't have a don't know on these issues.
Correct. I will have an answer to that question next week.
Paragraph 5.21 shows how a police officer dismissed the case of a 12-year-old girl who'd been having sex with up to 5 Asian males because he said she had been, quote, 100% consensual in every incident. 12 years of age? I think that's unbelievable, to be honest.